into Museum, the Millington Power Kirby. And then,
start line and up into Hall Bend.
So now we've got Bonnie Addison is latest acquisition. Onto the grass on the outside, inside the museum, still finished 60.79.
Then Owen sharing Lee Griffiths OMS 25 already on the way towards you.
Yep, we've got Lee out of Barrow in the OMS 25.
Yeah.
Being shorter as well.
Yeah.
Not some black and white sticking out.
Yeah.
And opens back as she crosses the finish, 60.07.
Modified and engine built by her husband Terry. 2 litre V8 based on 2 Gamma R1 motorbike moving away from us along Stephen Street right now.
Yes, this is a 1991 Formula 3 radar, now fitted with one of Terry's TKD V8. Trisha out of Barrow already, heading up into Museum. And Trisha's going to finish 51.08.
Now on the start line is Sandra Tomlin. Double written card, start L, the ultra powerful Turbine MP97 4-litre EV car. Opel engine. Sandra on her way towards you.
Sandra Tomlin already in the braking area for Fallow. And just the rest of the finish. 56.99 for Sandra Tomlin. Tony Hunt, the HP powered duel. He's a finish 50.91. duel out to museum, heading up, sorry, out to Sallow, heading to museum. And Steve Garrett comes to the line, 49.56.
Well, it should be what it's going to be on the line now. This is just a tell on our screen, but the car actually is white, but it should be red. It's colour for this year. Yes, it is white. Last few rounds in the series, took two outright wins at Prescott a fortnight or so ago, and finished second each time. What is a bit of a disadvantage is dropping full.
One changes into and out of Sallow. Rapidly into museum. And flashes through the finish, 44.55.
New British champion-elect Alex Summers on the hill now. Who's been tremendous things at Duel last weekend. Made sure the championship. Bear in mind, only the second practice run. What can Alex do?
Alex Summers through Sallow. Dark up to museum. And to the finish, 44.74. Graham wins 4cc, already up into museum. 1.2 litre turbocharged Suzuki Hayabusa, and he's through the finish, 47.97.
So on the line now, new car and driver combination. This is Rocky Isle, not driving his famous Pilbeam 3.5 litre, but driving the Andrew Pratt Velara. Formula 3 car, 399 with Raptor power, which is sharing today with Forest Isles.
Here comes the Velara, first time that Rodney's driven this car in competition. Already up into museum band. And he's through the finish in 53.63. And that is the last car in the back. The car's already started to push out of the holding area.
Rodney R63 in the Velara, and they also another actor who might be interested to know this is the same car that was driven in the past by Alan Warburton and Paul Haynes, both today. And Paul Haynes, in fact, won a British Hillclimb Championship round of June with the car with the Opel several years ago. So the historic car, and in fact, won around on the British Sprint Championship car.
She started drinking my bloody whiskey at home as well.
Oh dear, yes, well.
So that's time for a battery return. What we will do tomorrow, when the batteries return, we will appraise you of the positions in the classes to that point, each class from it, both in the morning and the final provisional results of the classes run in the afternoon. sound awful. With there being three of us in the evening, something strange during the day. Not for you though, Steve. You'll be there all day, but I know you like it. Up the hills from here. Up there with the pier.
That's right, yeah. Quite expensive. The last car down the hill is the Dallara.
Well, that looks like that return is complete. Has the last car left the top, Steve?
Yeah, 147 was the last car down the hill, the Dallara. And should be next on the hill, I would have thought, is the Charles Williams, is it? And it did Charles off the line.
This is the car that was run for a couple of seasons by Terry Clifford. Terry's car's always notable by being painted white.
And Charles Williams up into Fallow already with this 2-litre Vauxhall engine propelled by new techniques. Heading up over the top of the hill and through the finish, 57.11.
Please down on the line now with the Rover KB6 powered MP88. Candle 117. away from the line. Similar to the car which was run by Tom New many years ago. Not too many of these V6 Rover engines about. Graham White Jr. drove a large version in this mushy followed by Tim Elmer, just looking at our Heartline camera to see who's coming to the line next as George Bleasdale heads up towards Fallow.
George Bleasdale now into the braking area for Fallow. And getting back up to the pace that he was at a couple of seasons ago. Now over the crest of the hill and through the finish, 53.76.
Next car on the line is the other Stevens brother, it's Gavin, with the Delara Vauxhall F399. Quite the car a couple of seasons ago, didn't appear much last year in it, but they've been out towards the latter part of this season. All these cars running in the normally aspirated 2-litre single-seater class. Indication of the way things are going, because just one registered contender is in this class, whereas virtually all the drivers in the forced induction 2-litre classes are registered for the championship.
Gavin Stevens into Fallow with the Delara.
Now we got
Early
Mark
trip
Johnny.
down from 1999. And 57.46 Gavin Stevens.
And here's Mike Redoni in the very latest Philippines to be built, the MP101 with 1634 large capacity Hayabusa engine in the back. Also running, of course, in the normally aspirated 2-litre class.
Mike Trigoni safely through Fallow. Now after Museum. Charging up and through the finish, 52.06.
So locking up under braking now into triangle is number 114 John Coswell in the MP82 Philippine with 2-litre Minton power. We saw his wife Nikki driving the car a few moments ago. Now it's Tim Elmer, who appeared mid-season with his long-awaited Delara F303 with Terry Davis built Yamaha-based V8 in the back.
John Coswell already into the braking area for Museum. Just a little bit wide on the exit. Racing run to the finish. And through the finish, 57.04.
So now Ian Fido leaves the start line. OMS chassis, but another of these Terry Davis Yamaha based V8. So Terry's own engine, the one that he runs, Suzuki based.
Tim Elmer already through Museum in the TKD powered Delara. He's through the finish, 56.02.
And past us in Fido, father of Simon, who you'll see in his Empire race in a little while. And now Andrew Henson leaves the start line, Philbeam MP62.
That's Ian Fido in one of the 2-litre TKD V8 up into Museum already. He's heading to the finish, and it's a 52.9.
So away from the start line, Guernsey man Jeff Gill, proprietor of Laviette Garage in Forest. And well, Jeff Gill, they say of him on the Channel Islands that the older he gets, the quicker he is, and certainly his time is well determined.
Through the finish is 50.83.
So Jeff Gill passed us, as I say, the older he gets, the quicker he is. At Val d'Ité, he's certainly run faster than he ever has has in his some 45-year career in Speed Hill Bike.
I always thought it's the older you get, the quicker you were.
Yeah, in his case, he really is quicker.
Yes, Jeff Gill already out to follow up to museum. It's very, very smart. CF04 RMS. So he can Vauxhall power, and he's through the finish in 274.
Tim Davis passed us, the car we saw earlier in the hands of Bill Morris. Tim Davis, a Jaguar apprentice right back in the 50s. He was a Jaguar dealer back then.
Tim Davis into Fallow. Slows quite a bit going into museum. Now over the crest and through the finish 49.89.
On the start line, this appears to be Andy McBee, or even Andy Macbeth. Yes, leads the start line, OMS 25, supercharged Suzuki engine in the back, quite a number of cars of this combination running from the OMS concern these days.
Incidentally, at that time, Tim Davis said he is the only sub-50-second run we've seen in the normally aspirated 2-litre class. So, as ever, Tim Davis on the pace as Andy Macbeth comes past us with the OMS Suzuki, which he's sharing with Mr. OMS himself, Steve Owen.
Andy Macbeth already into Fallow. A bit of a pop and a bang got over him as he goes into museum.
Here's Lee Griffiths going past us. Heavily based driver, Yorkshire based, on his way towards the top of the hill. Meanwhile, sitting on the start line, the Gould GR59 of Simon Moyes.
Lee Griffiths in the 1.3 supercharged Suzuki powered RMS25, already out of museum, popping and banging his way over the finish, and I don't have a time.
Got a time for Lee Griffiths, the 48.15, and squealing tyres through triangle now. It's Simon Moyes. In fact, he's slowed dramatically and just...
A lot of smoke from the side pod there, Jerry.
Yeah, it could be a problem there for Simon Moyes. He's going very slowly around keepers. On the line, meanwhile, sits the turbocharged version of the GR59. I'm not sure whether that's actually driven by Paul Hames. Not sure he's going to get a red flag because Simon Moyes going very slowly up Cedar Straight.
Coming to view now, Simon.
I think probably Paul Hames got a flag earlier on around about Hall because he's not appeared yet, so he should be able to go back to
Simon continuing up the hill. And sounding very problematic, misfiring, popping and banging, and exceedingly slowly through the finish. He actually does get a time 92.76, but I think the main concern is whether or not the car has some permanent problem.
Well, Paul Hames not appeared here at Triangle. He must have had a red flag earlier on. Whether he'll coast or roll back to the start line, we're just keeping a lookout. We've not seen him yet, but
I don't know if you spotted it, Jerry, but there's a massive puff of blue-black smoke from the left side pod of the Moyes car, which is where the exhaust outlet is. So let's hope there's no serious damage to the car.
well, that's GR59, one of three here today. Simon's supercharged version, Paul Hames with the turbo car, and of course Sean Gould and Iron Price with the latest GR59 that appeared at the beginning of this year, which is neither supercharged nor turbocharged. It's a normally aspirated 1600cc Hayabusa.
And nor does it have traction control or paddle shift. It's all down to man and machine, so it's ideal for an ex-rally driver like Arnon Price,
who in fact won the British Championship round at Loton Park earlier this year in the car. And Sean Gould did very well at Doon last weekend with the 4th and 5th place in both runoffs, just a 1600cc normally aspirated car. Meanwhile, Paul Hames is coasting back to the paddock, just getting a bit of marshal assistance to push him up the hill into the paddock entrance. We'll be seeing Paul Hames back very shortly. Hopefully he will have no problems with his GR59. He's been plagued with electronic problems throughout the season, and the car has gone well when it's been running, but unfortunately that's not been for very much of the time. So hopefully Paul Hames can get a good run at it this weekend. And just to finish his season off, he'll be at Prescott next weekend for the American doubleheader at the beginning of October.
You going to that meeting, Jerry?
Yes, I think I'll go. I'm going to have a weekend off, Eddie.
Yeah, same here. I'm going to have a weekend off and still go to HillClimb.
Yeah.
A
rare weekend off.
And then we'll be on duty the following weekend, won't we, at Kerbera on 2 separate days?
Yes, I should be there for the HSA finals on Saturday, and I think you'll be at the MAC event on Sunday.
Yeah, that's right. Yes, yeah. One of our young marshals here going to be making his single-seater debut in his father's little Jedi 600. That's Sam Walker. So Sam, wherever you are, the best of luck. I've already spoken to you today. We do have a car on the line. It is a Force PC. I believe that is Nicola Minges. And it is Nicola, yes, the wife of currently third in the title chase, Wallace Minges. She co-runs this Force PC with Davey Wren. Nicola, an occasional runoff contestant, sometimes survives the cut. After one to try, she's going well along the short straight into keepers. Makes the exit of keepers, goes past Marshall's post number 4 and heads off along Cedar Straight. And on the start line is Forest Isles.
Nicola into Fallow. With the tiny run up into the museum already. And Nicola Minges through the finish, 51.99.
So Forest Isles, Delara 399, away from the start, heading our way. I've already told you about this car. It's got quite a degree of heritage. Started out on the circuit in Formula 3 back in 1999, hence the 399 moniker. Already moving away along Cedar Straight. Now Paul Crute in the only Jaguar-powered Philbeen in existence.
Forest Isles, son of 4 times British Sprint champion Tony Isles, is here today and will be sharing the Delara with Forest next season.
Forest Isles up into the museum. Over the press, and he's through the finish, 53.17.
So Paul Crute in the now somewhat historic Philbeen on his way towards you and away from the start line. Terry Davis, TKD, Delara.
Yep, we've got Paul Crute up at Fallow, up into the museum now with the Jaguar V6 powered Philbeen. He's MP 5801, the original chassis. Paul through the finish, 56.8.
And the car away from the start now is Terry Graves in the Gould GR37 with Cosworth V8 power.
Terry Davis, meanwhile, out of museum in the Reynard 1991 Formula 3 car through the finish, 51.49.
Terry Davis, Terry Graves, I think, flying on with the somewhat older model GR37. He does have a GR55, an ex-Rob Turnbull car, but he's not been out very much in that at all this year. So sticking to the GR37. Car
Right, we've got the GR37 build of Terry Graves into and out of Fallow. Cosworth DFR power, of course. Yes, Andy Fraser car. Through the finish already, 52.5.
Very good launch time. It was probably one of the quickest we've seen this afternoon. 1.96 seconds over the first 64 feet with the 4-litre jump powered duel.
The third spring assisting that quick takeoff.
And he's up on the split at keepers therefore.
Oliver Tomlin now heading up to Museum with the Purbu MP97. Hope the Judd engine out and through the finish 47.98.
And on the start line now is Alistair Crawford, number 10 last season.
In fact, he's 9th equal now, Eddie, with John Bradburn, so that's going to be a bit of a duel tomorrow to see who gets the 9th place in the championship.
So with no points to drop through them, that's a straight fight. Now here is Alistair Crawford, a quick exit from Fletcher. He's already at triangle, he came very smoothly into our strike, maybe a little hesitant on the throttle leaving triangle, and he's already out of keepers and heading along Cedar Straight towards Steve.
So we're looking out for the 2.8 litre Nicholson McLaren V8 powered Gord. Here comes Alistair Crawford up into Museum. Flashes through the finish.
Well, his rival John Bradburn's already through triangle now. 46.73 values for Crawford. These two duelling all weekend. We'll see how they go in the second practice run. 9th equal in the championship so far.
John Bradburn into Fallow. This is the Cosworth HP powered Gord. And charges through the finish, 46.66, advantage John Bradburn.
But not by much. So now looking for Tom New. Yes, he's next on the line with the ex-Martin Groves Gould GR55 with 3.5 litre Nicholson McLaren V8 power. The car's been going very well towards the end of the season, both in the hands of Tom and, of course, Wally Slingers, who had that double win at Prescott and a double second at Doon last weekend. Third overall in the series. Tom New away from the line. He's moving up the order too. And Tom New currently in 5th place overall in the series. Moran. So the British Hillclimb engineer who rebuilt the car over the winter is already heading off up Cedar Straight, and we'll be looking out for Trevor Willis, the man who's second overall.
Top New out of Fallow already in this immaculately prepared GR55B. Now over the crest and through the finish, 47.1.
And the best launch yet for Trevor Willis, 1.87 seconds over the first 64 feet. We'll check his triangle split. A mid-18 would be good. That's what all the opposition seems to be doing at the moment. But
Red flags and a scramble for the rescue unit. So a slight delay while the clerks and the rescue unit deal with Trevor Willis, who left the start line but never actually reached us here. We didn't see him arrive at Hoggies, and the recovery unit driven by Agley and District Light Car Club and President John Mould on its way towards the car.
I understand that Trevor has come to a sudden halt around about post 2, so he may be in Wales at the moment.
Yeah, we've got the not only the recovery unit, but every single clerk is on their way towards the scene of the incident. So everybody disappeared out of our sight just for the moment. So let's So just having a look at practice times so far, and of those who've taken their 2 runs so far, well, quickest today, and just a few minutes ago in the previous batch was Wallace Mingus, and he did a 44.55. Champion-elect Alex Summers, 44.74, just a couple of tenths, less than a couple of tenths behind Wallace, and although he's suffered a fail up around Hall and Loggerheads, Trevor Willis on his earlier run this morning was third on a 45.57. Scott Moran 45.714, but Scott yet to take the second of his practice runs. He's been returned to the paddock, and well, it's perhaps unsurprisingly to tell you that 5th place was the tiny 1300cc turbocharged force of Davey Arena, sensational 46.51. Bear in mind these guys are running fairly elderly tyres in their practice on Saturday. It's all to play for tomorrow. Nothing on the line today, but Davey Arena, 5th quickest, 46.51, so less than a second behind Scott Moran. And we'll see Scott in a little while. Looks like we may not see Trevor again today. We'll let you know what the situation is when we hear of him returning to the paddock.
Yeah, well, Davey Wren was going exceptionally well the top part of the hill through Museum. No hesitation getting back on the tower and lashed through the finish. So good run from Davey Wren, and there's quite a few people running a bit wide on the exit of Museum, but no such trouble for Davey.
So it gives us a little chance to talk about the people that look after us here at the Loton Park. We have the sponsors. You can find them throughout the programme, those who advertise with us. We encourage you to look at the services that they provide, whether you're in racing or any other business. You'll find them here in the programme. But our championship here at Loton Park, sponsored for this year for the first time by Dave West All Swage Business, who supplies to the hydraulics industry. They supply hose assembly equipment, and they've been in that business since 1995. And Dave West, regular competitor here at Loton Park, the proprietor of that business. Also fortunate enough to have Rybrook of Shrewsbury here. And a display of Minis, the Mini brand these days owned by BMW, an expanding brand portfolio. Go and have a chat with them about their latest products. Also, the other thing we can't do without here at Loton Park, of course, is our ever loyal marshalling team. And they're visible on the hill in orange. You can't miss them. You can't operate motorsport in the UK without marshals. So our gratitude goes out to all of those guys and gals in orange. And well, you don't get any closer to motorsport than marshalling, believe me. Done it myself in the past. Still maintain a marshal's registration. And if you're interested in getting that close to the action, you have a busy day. Our people do it for the love of it, but if you fancy a go, just have a chat with any of our marshals or seek out our Chief Marshal, Adrian Mudge as he's just known. Everybody will be pleased to talk to you about what they do. Training is given, you're never thrown in the deep end. And the first thing you probably do is be given a broom and sweep up after somebody's gone off the track, but then you eventually work your way up through looking after the fire bottle and the flags to being post chief and so on. And well, the opportunities are limited, but the distance you can travel is of no object whatsoever, because one of our regular former Midland Marshals and clerk of the course also at Prescott was Jim Tatler, and he ended up as circuit safety manager at Yas Marina Circuit out in the United Arab Emirates.
And of course, the other advantage of being a marshal is you get to see some of the tracks that the rest of us don't get to.
That's right, yes.
See Hall and Loton.
Well, in certain parts of the country you get to parts of the track that not anybody, even the competitors, see from that level. They're down at track level, and the marshals at somewhere like Val de Terre, they're up on the bank above the track at places where the spectators can't even see from a distance. Speaking of which, we have a long-term supporter of Channel Islands hill climbing here today in the form of twice British Hillclimb champion Chris Kramer, and he was out last weekend with David Gould in the championship winning Gould 84G from which he won his 1985 championship. He's supporting Wallace Wingers and Tom New down in the paddock. You see him sporting his Sand Ace cap, as do I and Jerry Sturman and a couple of other people. Sand Ace premier event won by the I think, are we back on air? Yes, it sounds like we are. We've been coming and going just a couple of times. So the Sand Ace takes place May the 21st next year. If you're in that part of the world, go and take that in, because the admission is free.
As well as Scott Moran due up next, we've got some superb classic racing cars coming up in the next few runs. Richard Jones in that Brabham BT29X, and John Hewitt in a unique Link car Atlantic, which now has a V8 Rover engine shoehorned into the back. Not to forget the rather rapid Jonathan Farley in the March 772P. With all that to come. And then we move through into the all-swage Loton Park Championship program for the third set of practice runs.
And talking to Richard Jones in the Brabham, Steve. The Peter Voigt's Loton Park Midland Championship record is the only one on the Midland Hills that he hasn't got. But in fact, he did break the record unofficially at the end of last month. I think you were here, but it might have been the day before, when he was running in the BOC Classic class. And in fact, he did get underneath that Peter Voigt record, but he has yet to do it officially. And it's just about his last possible chance to win
the Midland Hillclimb Championship because he's second in the series at the moment, but unfortunately he only has 3 in the class, not enough for maximum points. So if Mike Turpin, the defending champion, does win the class, he's going to win that Midland Championship for the 3rd time, in fact.
Yes, because that BT29X was originally the Tony Griffin's car.
And here's Trevor Willis now rolling. The recovery unit wasn't required. He's rolling his way down towards us with mud on the tyres and no nose cone or front wing, and the marshals are going to assist. Recovery unit has already returned along the shortcut, actually returned towards its parking place up behind the back of the second part of and we're back on the air again. We're drifting in and out, and rescue unit, if you're further up the hill, you'll see the rescue unit returning to its parking place.
Good to see Trevor in the car with it rolling on its wheels, so damage doesn't look too bad. Not for the first time Trevor has recovered in a matter of hours after a little bit of an off. He did that at Prescott in practice a couple of weeks ago, took a corner off, and in fact before the end of the afternoon the car was back on 4 wheels and certainly competing the next day. So we'll expect certainly to see Trevor.
Thumbs up from Trevor just then as he went past.
Oh well, he
Jerry.
must have heard us. That's good. Will we see him again? You have no doubt
well,
of that.
we know he's got a spare nose cone. He did have did have that equipped with a different front wing. Last weekend at Doon he ran with the slightly wounded nose cone from a little incident at Guernsey back at the beginning of July, or the middle of July. But he did run for a couple of events a plain black nose cone.
He ran a nose cone with some extended trailing edges on the front wing, and everybody was thinking that was a new aerodynamic tweak for Trevor. In fact, it was a nose that he had kicking around at the back of the garage for several years. So he's got all the bits there, and we'll be seeing him a little bit later on. Currently he's 2nd overall in the championship, but only 1 point ahead of Wallace Mingus. The difference is Wallace is dropping points and Trevor isn't. And hot on the heels, of course, Scott Moran, although he's missed 10 rounds this year due to other commitments, he's not out of it yet. He could still move up into the top.
And he has, when he's been present, he has been the man to beat, hasn't he, Jerry?
He has indeed. He's already scored 10 British Championship runoff wins this year, including 2 hill records. And the next up is Alex Summers, the champion-elect, who has just 7 wins to his name. In fact, Trevor has 6, so it's pretty tight at the top.
I've just spotted Clark of the course, Annie Goodyear, carrying Trevor's slightly the worse for wear nose cone back into the paddock.
Well, spot of tank tape.
That's right. If it's stuck, WD-40. If it's broken, duct tape. That's the order of the day, isn't it? If it won't move, it's WD-40. If it's moving too much, it's duct tape. Do you remember, Jerry, that chap with the Sprite at Fragante HillClimb a few years ago?
Oh,
completely rebuilt the front corner of his wing and remounted the headlight with about, I don't know, about half a kilometre of tank tape, didn't he?
Several rolls, yes.
Yes. Because it's in the road-going category, it had to have a working headlight, didn't it? The scrutineers insisted on that. So,
didn't he put a pocket torch in there or
something like that, pocket torch and about 2 miles of duct tape, yeah.
Doesn't sound like Northern Ireland.
No, not at all. No.
I mean the legendary scrutineering Paul Hames's old Dallara inside the trailer with the back door still locked, yes.
Yeah. We opened it last week. Oh, well, that's all right, then it must work.
That's right.
Yeah,
Nowhere else,
I always remember the comment that came about one of our guys in the British Sprint Championship who was over with a Reynard, and the scrutineer sort of took one look at it and gave him the ticket, and the driver said, "Do you not want to change it?" The scrutineer said, "It's a Reynard, isn't it?" The driver said, "Yes, I've seen one of those before." Walked away.
And again, only in Northern Ireland could that happen. the rescue unit, they return to drinking tea and eating cake, which is their normal activity through most of the weekend until an incident occurs. Saying, "Hear me, where's my donut?" So a car comes to the line, and it is the car still carrying the number 1 for the remainder of the season. That's Scott Moran, the most successful driver in British speed hill climbing. Currently operating with 5 titles, and Jerry will tell us how many wins to his name.
153, is it?
Wow.
And the car has won 155. Yeah. 155 British rounds.
So here's Scott Moran now, coming down towards us. He'll be quick, always is. Beautifully prepared car, pushing the tyres a little bit, but they will be some fairly elderly ones for use in practice. Disappears out of Keeper's Bend along Cedar Straight, where Steve will pick him up.
Yeah, we can hear, and here comes Scott already. Very, very smooth as always. Up into Museum Bend. Effortless drive through the finish, 44.57.
Yeah, quick correction here. 133 wins for Scott, of course. 105 for the car. Here's John Hewitt now with this splendidly re-engineered
Lynn car, John.
The name's gone. Lynn car, yeah. Martin Slater of Slough. This one's got a 5-litre Rover V8 in the back, of course.
Yep, and John Hewitt already out of Fallow, up to Museum. Rumbles his way through Museum. And up and over the crest to the finish, 55.09.
So running towards the end of a batch now, because we're seeing the double drive cars from our all-swage UK Loton Park Championship. First season sponsored by Dave West's all-swage business. So 851, Chris Whittaker absolutely pushing the tyres to the limit on his Citroen Saxo. To be followed by Ruth Marshall in the Mazda MX-5, car co-driven by Mother Peter.
Chris Whittaker already up into Fallow with the little Saxo. And Chris Whittaker through the finish, 70.86.
So Ruth Marshall goes past his first season for Ruth, doing rather well in our all-swage UK Loton Park Championship Class 1. First season out in the car, first season out in motorsport of any kind. And Daniel and me is apparently on the hill and heading our way, but we've yet to see him.
Ruth Marshall taking through Fallow, up towards Museum, the MX-5.
And a struggle for traction for Daniel Me down here at Triangle Bend. And away from the start is Becky Manton.
72.53 for
So here comes Becky Manton. number 858.
Daniel Mee now heading up towards Museum Bend in the Little Austin Hilly Sprite. And Daniel Mee's time 76.43. Becky Manton into fallow. Up to Museum, little dab of the brakes, carries quite a bit of speed through the corner. Becky over the crest and through the finish, 71.69. And I think that's the last car.
Yeah, last car in back, so they will be returning to the bottom of the hill. So we have one remaining batches of cars to run, and that means we will have seen everybody twice today. We'll then start a third practice. So just having a look at our all-swage UK Loton Park Championship, the positions in practice. So James Peake was the quickest. That's car number 150 in the Tiger Supercat with 2 litres Z-Tech power. And but he's only had one run yet. He's about to take his second run at the beginning of this next batch. And Chris Whitaker in the Citroen Saxo did a 70.86 on his second practice run. So we'll see those in just a few moments. Bruce Marshall, 4th quickest in practice. All to play for tomorrow, of course. Tom New coasting back to the bottom of the hill. Scott Moran waving to the marshals, thanking them for their assistance today. Don't forget, we've got our catering franchises here. Paul Bakehouse's van down in the paddock itself, and up behind us a second unit. Also Kevin, the ice cream man from Bromsgrove. Don't forget to go and see him, and also the Loton Park regalia and merchandise shop. You can also buy, if you're a competitor, or if you're just camping here for the weekend, there is a hog roast tonight at 6:30. Tickets are £6 for the hog roast, available in the Loton Park shop there, not very far away from this commentary box at Triangle Bend. So go and talk to them if you want to partake of the hog roast tonight at 6:30. Just go along and see them and buy a ticket for £6. And it is Nick Tart away from the start line, so Nick running in Class M, so sports racing and racing cars manufactured prior to 1971. This is the, not quite but almost unique March 708 from the early 1970s, smallest March ever built. Nick runs a little bit wide coming out of Triangle Bend, and he's into keepers. He'll head away, and then behind him on the start and away is Joshua Moss in the Centaur Lotus, this pretty little and very beautifully prepared single-seater forward crossflow. And then Richard Jones, that Jerry was talking to you about a few minutes ago, on the start line right now.
Nick Tart heading up the bend and forward forward mark.
And the Centaur Lotus, built by Richard Scott for Formula Ford a while back. The reason it's called a Lotus is because it has the twin cam engine in the back. Here's Richard Jones now coming into Triangle, 29X.
Joshua Moss gathers it all together coming out of Fowler after a moment on the grass. He's over the finish, 58.01.
Both previous drivers have found time over their first runs. Can Richard Jones get somewhere near to beat the British record in practice? We'll know in a second as he's up with speed. Now we've got Ben Jones in the Mark BDG.
Richard Jones to the finish, 53.66.
And you'll have Christopher Bentley Jones coming your way, Steve. Roger Dean's away from the start line in the big V8 Lola Formula 5000 car. Jonathan Varley now away from the start line. His March 772P Formula 2 car coming down towards us now.
The Formula 5000 car, driven in period by Keith Holland, and Roger through the finish 60.52. Jonathan Farley hot on his heels into Fallow, slides the car out of the corner, now up into Museum. 2-litre Ford PDG engine powers him over the finish, 49.71.
Now here's Stuart Ridge. Milgram MP53 acquired this season with
the ex-Rodney Isles car. That Stuart Ridge is leading the championship within the Midland Series.
Into Museum already with the Hart-powered Pilby, and he's over the finish 50.5.
Richard driving the Swallow DR14 acquired from Andrew Henson over last winter. Already on his way towards Steve, and away from the start line Phoebe Rolt in the Elva Formula Junior, running in the Formula Junior Historic Racing Association class.
Richard Walker, Ford-powered Swallow DR14. Museum, an ex-Formula 3 car, and Richard heading over the finish 58.65.
And Phoebe Rolls in the Elton Formula Junior, built by Frank Nichols in the very early 1960s.
Phoebe Rolls out of Fallow, going quicker and quicker every time she's visited Loton this year. All like it. Now we've got James Peake at the top of the hill, number 150, Tiger Supercharged. James through the finish 64.59.
Go the timekeeper. Now the Link car again, this time Matt Morrison. The Link car over, he had to back off, running his way around Triangle Bend, but he's safely through keepers and away, and off the start line now, Paul Owen for 152 in the BMW 3 Series.
Rob Whittaker through the finish, 73.55 in the Citroen Saxo. Matt Morrison meanwhile in the Link car Atlantic. Now with his 5-litre Rover V8 engine into the back, rumbles his way out of Museum, heading towards the finish, and it's 58.97.
And now along Cedar Straight is the BMW TI of Paul Owen. Meanwhile we're looking out for Edwin Toms in the Ford Fiesta ST. Series 5 Ford Fiesta coming our way right now.
Paul Owen up to Museum, BMW 3 Series. litres, over the finish, 70.47. We've got Edwin Tom in the Fiesta ST150 already out of fallow. Up into museum. Safely over the crest of the hill. And through the finish, 68.83. Follow now is the MX-5, get the marshals out the win.
And a massive lock-up and a half spin for Richard Roberts in the Bishop Fury down here. And he does a full 360, sets off up there and gets a round of applause from the paddock.
339 for Peter Marshall. Bishop Fury arrives slightly sideways at fallow. Tyres squealing in protest as he goes through museum. Windscreen wipers working overtime, and he's through the finish, 71.73.
I think that's what you call being on the edge of control. That's what we call being on the edge of control, isn't it, Steve? Meanwhile, Colin Mee returns to the paddock having received the red flag up around loggerheads. So just a few moments respite as we get everybody back in position. Looks to me like Graham Manton on the start line in his 1275 midget. So away from the start line, Graham Manton. Graham driving the little MG midget. Here he comes, chucking the car wildly around Fletcher's Dello. He cut in tight and the car drifts away. The little sprites tend to roll a bit. Say MG midgets, but all the same thing really. And sitting on the line, Dave Watkins, Triumph TR8 as the midget of Graham Manton heads towards Steve. Dave Watkins, TR8 leads the start line.
We've got the little MG midget of Graham Manton. Every millimetre track on the exit of fallow. Through museum. Diving down through the finish.
Big handfuls from Dave Watkins in the TR8 down here, already disappears from sight. We'll keep our fingers crossed for him.
Well, we've got TR8 into and out of fallow already.
Into the box, it's a little Metro GTI of Andrew Collins. Meanwhile, Mark Bishop away from the start line.
Time for Dave Watkins, 64.03. We've got 3
Mark Bishop and Westfield SE Z-Tech around and away from us. Looking out next for Mike Reese. We'll see Mike in his Subaru Impreza. Here he comes.
Time for Andrew Collins, 63.61. We've got Mark Bishop now in and out to Fallow with the Westfield.
So Mike Reese's Subaru Impreza in the full Works WRX livery with the Solberg name on the rear window.
63 flight, Mark Bishop. Now we have the Mike Reese. This is the Solberg edition.
Well, leaving the line now is the man who's set the pace so far in his practice session in this class today, Steve Morgan, a good 5 seconds clear of the field in his Westfield SEIW, coming down the hill into triangle now.
6.94 for Mike Reese. Now we've got Andy Brook in the Road Runner, 1.8 litre supercharged Mazda MX-5 engine, and Andy Brook through the finish 60.19.
And final runner in this class, Stuart Warsop, in the only single-seater, the Jedi Mark V. He's actually second in class to Steve Morgan, who should be up with you now, Steve.
Steve Morgan in the Westfield out of Museum, charges through the finish, 53.75.
Even quicker than before. So final runner Stuart Warsop with the Jedi, and then to complete this complete set of practice runs, we've got Graham Jones in the splendid Jaguar C-Type replica.
Stuart Warsop in the little 600cc Honda-powered Jedi up into Museum. A little bit of smoke coming out of the exhaust. He heads to the finish, 61.89. Now we've got the glorious Jaguar C-Type replica, 4.2 litre straight engine. Graham Jones has been campaigning this car for many seasons.
Batch one at here.
And we've got the rerun.
Sounds glorious as it goes past the commentary box. And Graham Jones through the finish, 69.26.
Yeah. We got the rerun from Colin Mee, and it comes after Graham Jones, and now we're going right back to the first batch of cars in the final practice session today, number 7180 Ian Richards with the Renault Clio Cup, just rounding keepers now. Back to Class A1.
Colin Mee already out of Museum in the little Austin Hilly Sprite, heading up through the finish, time of 76.57.
And now one of the largest cars in the event today, the Volkswagen Touareg.
One of the largest cars in hill climbing, I think, Eddie.
And the tallest. Oh, I think the door handles have survived the chrome being scraped off them as it rolled around Triangle Bend.
Time for Ian Richards, 65.7. Over a tenth quicker than his personal best here at Loton Park.
Yes, the big VW Touareg of Alistair Sutty and David Finlay had to extend the timing strut after it was digging into the tarmac, I think, on the first runs.
Yes, we've got Alistair Sutty in the tow rag up into Museum.
Not smoking, is it?
I think you could run over one of those Empire race with that car and never touch it. Anyway, he's through the finish, 69.26.
Fiona Rogers up next with the Subaru Impreza, and
yep, we've got Fiona Rogers into getting very, very close to the times that Chris has set.
Joy Hoyle next away from the line in the Suzuki Power Caterham that she shares with Roger Moran, of course.
Fiona Rogers' time 65.9, well inside her personal best time by over a second.
So Joy Hoyle coming into triangle now with the Caterham Suzuki, and final runner in this batch, David Warburton on the line with the Caterham Duratec.
Little Warby shoots away from the line. He's seen his dad, you'll understand why we call him Little. Dave up to Hall.
Heading into Fallow with the Suzuki Hayabusa powered Caterham.
Dave Warburton now cutting it very, very tight along the rumble strip at Fletcher-Dello.
5.81.
And Dave Warburton's traction control working overtime, and that is the end of the batch down at the bottom of the hill.
So we're just looking down for the last of the runners in this batch. David Warburton in the Caterham 7, running the 2.5 litre Duratec engine. And he's charging for the finish line, and it's a 54.56. Half a second quicker than his personal best. This augurs well for tomorrow.
Well, David Warburton currently second quickest in practice in that class, but it's Roger Moran with his second run that has the edge at the moment. The 1997 British champion in charge, as he has been so many times this year, of the road-going specialist production class. But this is only practice, of course. We're now well into the third practice runs, and tomorrow we should be starting, don't forget, 8:30 sharp with the competition runs proper.
Right, well, the red flags are starting to come in. We do have a problem for number 163, Andy Brook, with the Roadrunner. I understand it's the seat engine. So looks like his weekend is finished.
Who was that, Steve? Because we can only just hear you through our feedback speaker.
It's number 163, Andy Brook, with the Roadrunner SR2.
Okay, Steve, thank you. And the hog roast chap for this evening's roast at 6:30 is arriving, so don't forget, if you fancy joining us for an early evening meal from the hog roast, tickets are £6 a piece from the regalia and merchandise shop just behind us at Triangle. Thanks. Right, Paul Jones then, away from the start line. And the quickest so far in this Class A1 in practice. And Paul fully expected to take the class win tomorrow, given a good opportunity and a following wind. Here comes Paul now. He's from Witchenford, which is just across the valley from the world famous Chelsea Walsh Hill Climb.
Well, having said that, Eddie, Richard Brand just a quarter of a second behind him on the second practice run. How will it pan out for the third time?
And then Ian Richards has taken 3. His best was 65.67 this afternoon. And the renowned Paul Webster, the competition secretary of Gersten Downhill Climb, coming towards us in his stripy Mazda.
Paul Jones currently en route to Museum Best in the 135R.
Big lock up for Webbo coming into Triangle, but he manages to survive that. He's already heading up Cedar Straight in the Mazda.
Yeah. Paul Jones' time 6.361. Paul Webster into an out of fallow MX-5.
Not yet. This is Ken Williamson coming towards us in the Lotus, and on the start line is Richard Brandt, who has just those quarter of a second slower than Paul Jones. Paul Webster goes quickest in practice in that class, 63.03, despite that big lock-up moment at Triangle.
And Ken Williamson in the Elite Series 1 into Museum Bend. He's
And
for the finish, through it in 6.668.
And down the Triangle we've got Richard Brandt, who's now third quickest in practice. Beg your pardon, David Garnett. Actually, David locked on the bottom of the position there because Anthony Record failed this morning and hasn't reappeared. So Richard Brandt is now on the hill, and he'll be with us in about 10 seconds or so, coming out of Fletcher's Dello.
David Garnett, meanwhile, up into Museum Bend with the Clio Cup car. Charged the boot towards the finish and threw it in 67.52. Here comes Richard Chunky Brandt in the Renault Clio Sport.
It's cruel but true, Steve.
Rounding Museum, up and over the crest, and down into the finish, 63.94 for Richard Brandt.
So after final practice session, it's Paul Webster that leads the way in Class A1 from Paul Jones. George Harding on the hill now from A2 in his Mitsubishi Evo. In fact, he's running in a separate B licence class on his own, car number 24, George Harding. John Harding with the Jaguar E-Type, first of the runners in the over 2 litre road-going Class A2.
And George Harding almost off on the grass at Fallow, but just managed to keep it on the concrete strip on the outside. He's already over the crest and through the finish in 60.03.
So the E-Type of John Harding just heading out up Cedar Straight. He's followed by Steve Davey in the Honda Accord, just waiting for the car to come around Fletcher's.
And we've got very pretty E-Type, complete with the fiberglass hard top. John Harding marching up towards the finish, and it's a 64.46.
And through our start line camera we can see the VW Touareg on the start line and nothing else because it completely blots out the marshal's post behind it.
Nearly blocked out the sun earlier. We've got Steve Davey, meanwhile, in the Honda Accord Type R. And I think there's a little sign in the back window that says for sale. And he's heading up over the finish line, and it's a 66.33.
Look out, folks, here comes the Touareg. Will he remember to turn right? David Finlay, yes he does. The Scottish motoring journalist.
This car definitely not for sale, Eddie. This is part of the multi-car hill climb challenge, which Alistair Sutty and David Finlay are campaigning a different car at each Leaders' Championship round this year. And this is certainly the biggest one we've seen so far.
Yeah, I don't know whether you can buy these in Switzerland or not these days.
So David Finlay already heading up towards Museum. Seems to have a bird's eye view as he goes over the crest and heading to the finish. And through the finish line, 70.85.
Arch Hill Climb enthusiast Gordon Hick in his recently acquired Seat on his way. He sold all his other stuff. And this is a Leon Cupra 280, quite a quick piece of kit. 2 litre turbocharged VW engine, of course, but not a diesel.
He's even sold the Silver Striker, has he?
Yeah, it's all gone. Yeah, big clear out. Now, here's Tony Batterby in the Renault Clio rear-mounted V6. Big lock-up of the right front, and the tyres working overtime. Tony Batterby.
Gordon Hick, meanwhile, heads towards the finish, and through there, 68.83.
Well, next on the line, we've got the man who's setting the pace in practice so far, Robert Lancaster-Gay, with the Porsche 996. Just about to get the green light. He's away from the line now, as Tony Batterby heads up towards the finish.
Yeah, Tony Batterby already out of Fallow, heading to Museum. Tyres squealing in protest as he hauls it round Museum and run to the finish, stopping the clock at 65.28.
So down into triangle now, it's Robert Lancaster-Gay in the 996. Set the pace some 2 seconds clear of Jamie Powell at the moment in the Mitsubishi Evo.
Robert Lancaster-Gay comes into view. On paper, should win the class. He has his personal best time quicker than everybody else in the class. He's now through Museum and charges to the finish, 59.58.
Sean Toms, Porsche box down, the tyres working overtime there. He nearly rolled the rubber off the rims, I would say. On the start line, Dave Parr. Rockets away in the Ford Sierra Cosworth he has owned since new back in the 80s.
It's probably the oldest and certainly the most campaigned car in this class, I would suggest.
Sean Toms in the Boxster, into and out of Museum.
Well, Robert Lancaster-Gay fails to match his second practice run time, but he's still at the head of the class. Dave Parr on his way, followed by Peter Herbert in the Porsche 911, who registered this car for the British Hillclimb Championship, so gets to run at places like Northern Ireland. He was always a continental hillclimb enthusiast.
David Parr into and out of Museum in the long campaign Sierra Cosworth through the finish, 62.77.
And here's Peter Herbert, who was erroneously, because of his loyalty to Craig Antley, he was once described in a very bad piece of editing at Motorsport News as a hill climber loyalist, something you should admit to in Northern Ireland, of course. I was badly edited that day, Steve.
Happens a lot.
So Peter Herbert out of Fallow with the Porsche up into Museum Bend. This is a left hooker, of course, ideal for decent travels on the continent. And he's through the finish, 55.58.
Paul Harris on his way with the Evo 6, another winner of this class in the past. He's followed by yet another class winner in earlier days, Nigel Burke with the Subaru Impreza. But it's still Lancaster-Gay who's hanging on for the lead. Jamie Powell second quickest, a couple of seconds trip, and he's next to run.
Paul Harris out of Museum already in the Mitsubishi and through the finish, 61.03.
Lots of tyre squeal through triangle for Nigel Burke, who's currently fourth quickest in practice, but on the line and leaving it now. It's Chris Rogers with the Impreza. No sign of Jamie Powell at this stage.
Nigel Burke up into Museum Bend. On paper, second fastest in this class prior to the weekend, but seems to die a little bit at the edge of the finish, and it's a 60.93.
Chris Rogers, he was clerk of the course at Prescott British Hillclimb Championship meeting just a fortnight ago. Away from the start line now, Craig Spooner, Hale's own driver, in his Westfield SEIW, the W standing for wide, for the Hillclimb driver with the fuller figure.
out of Fallow Bend. Chris Rogers is the corrector.
Jack Cottrell away from the start line in the Raw Striker, yet another take on the classic British locator field style sports car.
Chris Rogers' time 65.93.
You'll see Jack Cottrell. Meanwhile, we're looking out for the AMS Mattia Subaru powered sports car of John Pick.
Greg Spooner out in the Westfield, out of Museum Bend.
Jack Cottrell is going to return to the paddock. Hand raised, the car's going slowly.
Greg Spooner's time 62.04.
The Mattia's away from the start line. That's John Pick. Remember him going down to Wiscombe Park for a couple of years ago by road, not trailered, for the British Hillclimb Championship round. Had no side windows at that time, and it was a bit wet on the way back along the M5, and he got absolutely soaked.
AMS Utara is
and he's just gone off-roading on it, coming out of Triangle Bend. Almost hit the little tyre wall on the left, mounted the edge of the grass there. Jerry Neary away from the start line, the retired dentist from Lutterworth area.
John Pitt into Team Fallow with the AMS Mattia already into. Oh, when he goes on the curve on the inside of Museum. A little bit of an eventful run up the hill for John to the finish 63.16.
Jerry Neary understeering out of Triangle Bend. Next car away from the start line, Tim Higgins, local taxi firm proprietor. Cabs operate in Osmond Street, 14 miles up the road. Coming to the start line now is Ray Law, HillClimb's very own professor.
Very near into Museum with his Westfield. Charges over the finish in 64.04. Higgins pops up into view at Fallow. Now en route to Museum. Up and over the crest and through the finish, 69.63.
And there's Professor Ray Law, the man whose titles are longer than his name on his business card, and he's gone past us out of Keeper's Bend on his way towards the top of the hill, and sitting on the line is Steve Day, and Steve Day is away.
Ray Law into Fallow with his Caterham 7 Super Sprint. Maurice Splendid to good place 3, and over the finish, 56.82 for Ray Law.
Very nicely done by Steve Day around Triangle Bend, very neat. Just keeping it all just about under control. He's going to be followed by Ash Mason, who Steve used to share various cars with over a large number of years. Looking out for Ash now, here he comes.
Okay, out to Fallow. Steve already charging up towards the finish with the Duratec powered car. And it's a 55.49.
Well, Ash Mason fourth, quickest in practice at the moment, with just half a second covering the top four. Roger Moran out front with the Suzuki powered Caterham. He'll be up in a few moments.
Ash Mason already up into Museum Bend with the supercharged higher booster powered Westfield, and through the finish 54.65.
Steve Garner regularly at the top of this class at Loton Park club event meetings. He's also working hard, the back end skipping out of line at Triangle, takes keepers and disappears from sight. And now Ken Evans away from the start.
Steve Garner braking heavily into fallow. Through Museum back in the west field. Through the finish, 56.66.
Well, Ken Evans now fourth quickest. Ash Mason's moved up into third place.
That's Dave Wilson away from the start line, Jerry.
Ken Evans braking heavily into Museum. The Suzuki Hayabusa engine powers him through the finish. 5.32.
Knock up from Dave Wilson into triangle. Bit of ground to make up at the moment. It's still Roddy Moran who is out front in practice on 54.38. Just a couple of tenths of drift to David Warburton. Still David's father Alan to go. Roger Moran though leads the line.
Dave Wilson, big lock-up coming into fallow, but he gets it stopped okay. Now heading up into Museum Bend. Leads the power in over the crest. Through the finish.
So former British champion Roger Moran on his way now. 54.38 has set the pace in practice so far today. And Alan Warburton now away from the start. His son David second quickest to Roger Moran at the moment. Alan down in sixth place in practice.
Roger Moran up into Museum in this Caterham 7 with the Hayabusa engine. Charging for the finish and through it in 53.96.
Alan Warburton has to steer away from the rumble strip at Triangle. Turned in a little bit too tight, manages to control it, and now Piers Thin, last runner in this class and an addition to his programme, rockets away from the start line in the Westfield Megabusa. But he's much slower away from the start than Alan Warburton or Roger Moran.
Moran back
out of fallow already.
Moran in fact quicker, he's into the 53s now.
Alan Warburton over the finish, 55.48.
Well, Piers Thin beaten only once this year at his local hill at Gerston Down, but I think he's been here once before with the Supercharged Megabusa.
End of a batch with the next car, which is Tim Cross.
Piers Thin up to Museum already. A little bit of a missed gear change, but it's the 56.53 for Piers Thin.
Change of pace now with Tim Cross and little Vauxhall Nova. Almost on full lock, absolute understeer there around Triangle Bend. Now disappears towards Steve at the top of the hill as the marshals open the return gate into the paddock for the batch return.
Vauxhall Nova heading our way. Tim Cross into fallow. Sweeps into Museum Bend. Up and over the crest. And through the finish, 59.44. That is the end of the batch. And first car down the hill is going to be the Road Runner. Being given a hearty shove. That's Andy Brook leading the way. The car that we believe has seized the engine. And then the rest of the cars starting to head out to follow him down.
So for those of you that don't know, for the first time ever, live commentary and a little bit of a webcam broadcast going out live over the internet on YouTube via HillClimb.TV, which you can search and find if you're preferably not here because you don't want to increase the bandwidth too much, but have a look later. And going out throughout the world. And how do I know? Because our old pal Jim Tatler, who used to be a clerk of the course at Prescott Hill Climb has asked to be put down for a ticket for the hog roast tonight. Well, that will be difficult to do because he's running race control at Yas Marina for a single-seater event, and he just caught our tones out on the live broadcast on his phone, would you believe? So we are going out worldwide via HillClimb.TV on YouTube. Yeah, so technology's moved on from the original, as Jerry points out, from the original 2 tin cans and a piece of string that we used when, well, Jerry used when he was a kid anyway. We did have cheap walkie-talkies by then, but just shows you where we've come with technology over the last, I don't know how many years. A while, isn't it, Jerry?
A long while.
Gordon Hick with his one of his many strange hats that he wears in the paddock, returning to the bottom of the hill, waving at the marshals, thanking the marshals for their involvement today, and they'll all do it again tomorrow. We've got 2 runs for everybody tomorrow and 2 exciting British Hillclimb Championship top 12 runoffs. Only the fastest 12 runoff competitors, registered competitors, will qualify for that, and because we're not particularly generous, only the top 10 get points. 10 for first, down to 1 for 10th, and nothing for non-finishers or 11th and 12th. So 2 runoffs tomorrow, 1 at the end of the morning session and 1 at the very end of the day. A style of meeting that we've been running since 1999, when we went from the old 2 qualifying shots at the end of the run and the fastest counting. And what it ensured is that even if you have to go early, you will have seen 1 part of the meeting, a scoring system, before you go off for your Sunday lunch. We'd prefer that you stay to the bitter end. Everybody cruising back towards the bottom of the hill. It's the only time you'll see them cruising all weekend. Often wondered if Tim Higgins has a taxi meter in his Westfield. I doubt it. Bentley Motor Cars senior engineer Ash Mason taking the pale grey Westfield back into the paddock. Looks like the tall fellow Alan Warburton may be the last to return. Indeed he is, so we'll be starting with the third of our batches in just a few moments. There are 6 operating batches in the meeting this weekend, so we don't have a return road, hence we call cars back in batches. The first batch consists of only 5. The remaining batches consist of somewhere between 30 and 40 or so cars. Batch 4 being the largest. Dual driven cars will be driven once under the first number, then in the following batch the second driver will take over. Something that occurs only in British Hill Climbs. The much longer continental hill climbs only run single drivers, as I found out last year when I went to Eshdorf to the inaugural FIA Hill Climb Masters. So no word about when a further edition of that will be. We were promised one for 2016, but we still don't have a date. We were told that it will be one of the shorter continental hills to accommodate our guys with their small fuel tanks, and we were also told it was likely to be somewhere in northern Italy, but the venue isn't known, and the date isn't known. The Luxembourg Hill was superb, but the Ardennes don't perhaps allow the longest of events. The weather often closes in at that time of the year with fog and mist early in the morning. Here's Glyn Davis leaving the start line. He starts off batch 3. He's driving his classic Ford Anglia with a 1300 pre-crossflow Ford engine under the bonnet. When I was a kid and first went to a race meeting back in the mid to late 60s, there were whole fields of these Ford Anglias back then. Usually with Cosworth heads on Ford three-cross flow engines. So Glyn Davis now, he's already approaching Keeper's Bend. He will depart Keeper's, head along the not particularly Cedar Straight, and arrive with Steve at the top of the hill in just a few moments.
We can hear the Anglia heading our way. Lee Davis is the fallow already. Now into the museum. Past the commentary box. Over the crest. And Lee Davis 67.17.
And now here is it's bright orange, but my good learned friend next to me describes it as the evergreen Ginetta G15 with Hillman in power, driven by Andy Russell, who's been driving that car now for well over 25 years.
We've been saying that, Eddie. In fact, further researches have revealed that it's more like 30 years.
Yes, I'm not surprised to hear that.
Most campaign car in British Hillclimb.
It certainly deserves to be referred to as such. Here comes Trevor Lacey in his Renault Clio.
Andrew Russell up into museum.
Oh, and nearly a little bit of a Trevor Lacey, a bit too enthusiastic coming out of Triangle Bend. The car wouldn't go where it was pointed, and he nearly clipped the bank on the left. Very lucky to get away with that one.
61.85 for Andrew Russell.
Looking out for Roy Holder, ought to come into sight any moment now. He also drives a Renault Clio, but in white with red bumpers. You'll see him when he gets to the top of the hill. He was a drag racer many years ago. This is motorsport for an awfully long time.
Heading up over the crest of the hill, this is of course the 2-litre Clio. He's through the finish 64.75.
Steve Bailey now back in a Ford Escort Mark 1 after many years away, driving his little Peugeot 205. This car's been in prep for some 5 or 6 seasons, Steve tells us. Nice plain white Ford Escort Mark 1, and he absolutely throws the car out of Triangle Bend. Beautifully done, the car drifting into and out of Keeper's Bend and heading towards the top.
Roy Holder through the finish 63.98. Braking heavily for Fallow is Steve Bailey in the Mark 1 Escort. This car surfaced middle of the year. Steve's been upgrading the car slowly, getting quicker and quicker, and it's 58.19.
And there goes Ben Cross, son of Tim. Ben in a little Vauxhall Nova. Sarah Bosworth away from the start line, the lady driver of the Lotus Elise, gents hairdresser from Sheffield she is. Here's Sarah now.
And former winner of both the Gersten Down and the Harewood Hillclimb Championships when she ran the car on road tyres.
Ben Cross into museum. He's up and over the crest and through the finish in 68.23.
There we go.
So Colin Satchell now coming into Triangle Bend in the wide track Peugeot, very quick as always. He's in a very strong position in the MSA Hillclimb Leaders Championship. Just needs a class win tomorrow to be sure of the title.
57.19 for Sarah Bosworth. We've got Colin Satchell now braking heavily into Fallow with his exceptionally quick Peugeot 205. Chucks it into Museum Bend. Just 0.05 away from the class record.
Richard Davenall now. Moving on a class. Richard in class C3, over 2 litre modified series production. And on the start line, Jeff Twemlow. Here goes Nigel Elliott in the TR7 V8. He wasn't daft enough having a 4.6 litre Rover V8, he's turbocharged it as well.
Richard Davenall in the multicolour swap shop Boxster, 61.54. And we've got the turbocharged TR7 of Nigel Elliott. He rumbles through the finish, 61.75.
Now Martin
Westlow now out of fallow.
Hagley Club Secretary Martin Silcox going past us, returned to hill climbing after a couple of years away.
And Jeff Swenlow through the finish, 61.78. Martin Silcox comes into view. Up into Museum Bay.
And a silver right of Martin Watts.
And it's a 63.3 for Martin Silcox. And we've now got Martin Watts in this little silver riot with the Yamaha R1 engine transversely mounted behind the driver. He's through the finish, 58.19.
So here comes Lloyd Chaplin in Tom Paul's For Sale, that little Empire. Oh, and the car waggles its tail in between the two parts of keepers. Liam Cooper rockets away from the line in the force.
Lloyd Chaplin into and out of fallow. Powers his way out of Museum Bay. And finish, 52.16.
Liam Cooper now shares this car with wife Olivia. Olivia, one of the Brown clan. Serial hill climbers. And away from the start now, Darren Gumbley, coming towards the end of his first season, sharing the Empire Wraith with...
Just a bit of a wiggle under braking for Liam Cooper. Up into Museum though, no problems there. Charged over the finish line.
Darren Gumbley going like the proverbial train down here. This class, 1100cc class, being led by Simon Andrews.
And here comes Darren Gumbley in the Empire Wraith. 1 litre Suzuki engine powering this little single-seater, heading through Museum Bend, past the commentary box, and over the finish, 51.81.
Red flags on the hill. So the car on the hill was Lindsay Summers. She hasn't got as far as us. There are red flags at post 2A, which is the marshal's post visible opposite us at Fletcher's Dello. Just see the marshal, can't see the car. Lindsay may have slid it off onto the grass on the outside of the somewhat notorious loggerheads. There's barely a straight. Once you turn left at all, the road immediately begins to tighten left into loggerhead, slackens slightly, then turns into Fletcher's Dello. So it's a true complex of bends and very, very tricky indeed. Sight lines here at Loton are quite unusual, particularly when you go towards the end of Cedar Straight. You either brake far too early or far too late, because you cannot see even the approach to the apex of left-hander fallow on the track, you have to rely on the 300-yard, 200 and 100 countdown boards. So Lindsay, well, it looks like Lindsay Summers' car comes into view, but it's back pointing towards us. She's clearly gone off the grass, onto the grass on the outside of the loggerheads into Fletcher's. So we can see the marshals pulling grass and bits and pieces out of the under tray of Lindsay Summers' car. She's remaining in the car. They're clearly just going to pull all the bits and pieces out to sweep off and turn her around. So here's the little DJ firehawk, the only space frame firehawk in existence, built for a customer of Del Quigley and Andy Smith, who didn't want carbon fibre, didn't trust carbon fibre. Del told me that this was the most difficult project they ever undertook and he'd never do it again. The bodywork is based on a very thin moulding for the carbon firehawk tub, and it pulls on like the finger of a glove apparently over the space frame. Very, very tricky thing to assemble. The chassis is the one that's been run variously by Ash Mason, Steve Day, Josh Goodyear. I can't even remember who the original owner was. And it's been heavily re-engineered by DJ with a completely different back end to take the little 1100cc engine. Only the tub and a few bits of the nose cone and the front aero remain from the car as it was. And it's certainly been doing, that's a pretty hefty Flymo incident. Certainly in the British Sprint Championship they do have a Flymo trophy for the competitor who went the longest distance off course. at the Sprint Championship round during the season. So maybe Lindsay will qualify for our version of that. Who knows?
Yeah, Tony Wiltshire has won the Climo trophy the most.
Yeah, but he's won it all over the place. He tried to run me over at Barben a few years ago, as Jerry will remember.
Yeah, Tony has the problem with his sat now.
Yeah, his directional stability control is probably limited. Probably because he's a Camden kid, which is the same district of Coventry that I'm from. So, yeah, we all lack directional stability down that way.
He's been driving a Formula Ford Van Diemen this season, though, and going very well in it.
Yeah, sharing with daughter Hannah, who is here today supporting Colin Satchel and the team. So we have a car away from the start line. It's Sam Lester. Sam driving the Force PT that she shares with Felix Summers. These folk are all neighbours in and around Tenbury Wells. Sam and her boyfriend Martin live just over the back fence of the Chateau Summers.
And already into Fallow Bend, heading up towards Museum, is Samantha Lester, the young Welsh driver, heading up towards the finish, 0.09, nearly a second quicker than she's been previously.
And our Dave Spencer in the homebrewed little Reynard Kawasaki. Clever installation by he and his elder brother.
Yeah, Davey Spencer in this 1988 Formula 3 chassis Reynard, into and out of Museum. Kawasaki engine working overtime.
Here's Debbie Dunbar in the former Works Force Empire. Followed by Bernie Kevell, whose co-driver Simon Andrews is leading this class in practice today.
Debbie Dunbar up into Museum, charging towards the finish. 62.19 to Debbie.
On the start line is the Works GR59 Gould of Sean Gould, who leads the line in short order.
Bernie Kevell out of Fallow. Now bolting for the finish line. And it's 6.08 for Bernie Kevell.
Sean Gould into triangle with the GR59. Went extremely well at Doon Hillclimb last weekend with the 4th and 5th place in each of the 2 runoffs. This This is the latest works car, normally aspirated, which first appeared at Prescott at the beginning of the season.
Sean Gould out of Fallow up to Museum already, pushing hard. And through the finish, 47.81.
And now here comes Les Much, sharing the GWR Raptor 3 of Richard Spedding just for this weekend. Les did very, very well at Doon last weekend, but the engine went hot at the end of the final runoff, so he's sharing today with Richard Spedding.
So here comes Les Much into Fallow, already on the run up into Museum Bend. Neat and tidy run from Les. No hits at a grassy moment, and he's through the finish, 51.36. And I believe that is the end of the match, gentlemen. So cars starting to be pushed back down the hill, led by Andy Russell in the Ginetta G15. Single seaters are following on behind. I suspect the last car we'll see down out of this group will be the Silver Riot.
So about to start batch 4, yes, batch 4, in which we'll get the majority of the runners who we should be seeing in the British Hillclimb Championship tomorrow, and also in batch 5, so batch 4 and 5 will contain the majority of the registered competitors, and sitting on the start line is Graham Lokes' Lola Porsche sports car. So coming back to Class G, so just two cars in that class. Graham Lokes, who leads the line now. This car built for Sports 2000 years ago, but for many years carried a VW Karmann Gear replica body in special saloons. Graham now used to edit our H&DLCC newsletter, Between the Beams, edited that for many years, and he's grinding to a halt and waving to the marshals to declare an engine stoppage. So Alan McDonald get the message? Yes, he does. Red flag out. So with Graham Lokes now doing a fail, Alan McDonald going to be quickest by a country mile. He did 53.88 earlier on today in his second practice run. So Graham Lokes a 61.75, a 57.7. So Alan McDonald always quicker than those two times. And he's sitting on the start line now in the radical little Evo Mini. It looks like a Mini, but it isn't. It's got a fiberglass Z-Cars Mini Monte Carlo shell mounted over a self-built tubular space frame chassis that Alan put together from a roll cage that he just happened to have. He then bought himself a Mitsubishi Evo 2 that had succumbed to the tin worm. It was very, very badly corroded, and he shoehorned all of the bits into this chassis. So the paddock gate about to be opened to allow Graham Lokes to be pushed back in. The marshal turn him somewhere up at the little turn off Keeper's Cottage at Keeper's Bend, where he will eventually appear back into view. Being pushed along. Gravity may help. So for those of you at the top of the hill that can't see, Graham Lokes now being pushed and coasting back towards paddock. That's his day done now. Engine's still running. I've got a funny feeling that will be something like a broken throttle linkage or throttle cable. Engine running, but just a fast idle. Flags are being brought in, whistles being blown. Track will restart in just a few moments. Alan McDonald still sitting on the start line in the Evo Mini, and well, the only mini bits on the car, as we commentators regularly say, are 4 mini components. They're mini boot hinges, 2 each side of the door hinges, and the doors, as you would see, are rather floppy when he opens them. They're very flexible indeed. Alan McDonald rockets away from the start line, 1.94, that's a really good 64-foot time away from the start line, aided by Mitsubishi Evo 4-wheel drive, of course. Alan's going to hove into view on the other side of the slope there. Here he comes around, touches Dello, downhill. Car makes all sorts of strange noises as the wastegate, turbo wastegate opens and closes. Alan's going to disappear from sight right about now, and next car will be Harry Pick, who's now running in the merged classes H and I. The only 600cc runner in the class. And red flags. Looks like Alan McDonald stopped up there on the hill. Did you get to see him, Steve?
No.
Okay, well he's left post 4, so he's somewhere on Cedar Straight. Let's hope it's nothing too serious as Harry Pick returns to the paddock for a restart as soon as we possibly can arrange it.
Alan McDonald has arrived, going relatively slowly. Touring up the hill. Hopefully no major problem with the car. Eventually through the finish in 8.397.
So it looks like we're about ready to start again. I can see from the start line camera the start line marshals are looking down into the paddock, and chalk on a stick is being prepared. So it's Pete Tatham away from the start line, change of car, change of class. Pete, in addition to class I, had moved from class J, where he had been entered in the Terrapin M type that he shares with his brother occasionally. Here he comes now, recently acquired car, we believe from the Fugit brothers, down in the southwest.
Pete Tatham out of Museum Bend at Loton Park with a finish 57.29.
Rob Capper on his way towards you for Empire PT. Now Harry Pick away from the start, his very quick restart. The only 600cc runner in this merged class.
And heading up to Museum, flying opposite Kappa. Safely out of the corner.
An exciting run through Triangle Bend for Harry Pick. All over the place, slid the car around. Now Tom Poole on the start line in the nearly new Empire Evo. It's currently for sale.
Harry Pick arrives with a little Yamaha-powered OMS Hornet. Charges up to Museum. And through the finish, 52.96.
Looking at the Tom Poole, here he comes. The relatively simply aerodynamically clad Empire Evo, the back end kicked out going out of Triangle Bend. He did control it. Hope he can control it better when he gets to the top of the hill. Bit of a harum-scarum run down here.
Tom Poole bringing heavily into fallow. Already into Museum Bend. Lifts the inside front wheel through Museum and over the finish, 50.19.
Now Olivia Cooper HC. HC standing for honeycomb. That's what the sides of the chassis are made from. That looks like the PCD Saxon on the start line.
Out of fallow bend, up towards museum. Oh, and the car gets all out of shape as she gathers it back together. Little bit of time lost there through the finish, 51.87.
And heading towards Triangle now, he should be coming out of Fletcher's now. Yes, Steve Marr on a rare visit to Loton Park. Tremendous battle between Steve and the man who should be following him, Simon Fido, at Doon last weekend, when Fido broke the class record twice, and then Steve Marr broke it again on the final run.
The pretty little PCD Saxon into and out of fallow. Steve Marr hard on the brakes going into Museum Bend. Inside front wheel goes light. Now fires it over the finish. 49.91 for Steve Marr.
Looks like we're not going to see Martin Jones. He rocketed away from the start with the red flag. But the start line has come out, and the start line marshals are looking up towards Hall.
A tremendous run from Steve Marr from round about 8th or 9th place. He's moved right up to the head of the class in practice with that 49.91. 300ths clear of Simon Andrews, who has a practice run in hand. So this class, as ever this year, is showing signs of being a tremendously hard-fought division. Certainly one of the best supported classes here at Loton today, and has been throughout the year. So Steve Marr leading in practice, 49.91.
And of course, Jerry, all through the British Hillclimb scene, the 1100s are probably the most competitive classes in single seaters.
Yeah, absolutely, Steve. Yes, well, we've got the top. Around about 5 cars all covered by a second. Well, that's quite a lot. In fact, we have seen in the past the top half dozen cars covered by mere hundreds. So who knows what we'll see tomorrow. Simon Andrews currently second quickest, but we'd expect Simon Fido, who also has a run in hand, to get up somewhere in the mix. But tremendous run from Steve Marr, because he doesn't come to Loton Park very often. In fact, he rarely ventures south of the border. But driving the PCD Saxon, with which the late Rob Barksfield still holds the Kirsten Down 1100 class record for probably around about 10 years now, I should think. And the car designed by Martin Ogilvie, the former Lotus Formula 1 designer, responsible for the Lotus 78 and 79 and cars of that era, who also was had a big hand in the design of Graham White Jr.'s, first of all, the Predator, and then, of course, the current GWR Raptors. Martin Ogilvie involved in all those cars.
And if you look at the front of the PCD Saxon, you can see a family resemblance, can't you, Jerry?
Yeah, it certainly can. Yes.
The Jeeps are there for all to see.
In fact, as Graham says, although the Predator, which we don't unfortunately see these days, that V10 car, appears to be quite a bit bigger than the Raptor. In actual fact, it's just about, the tub is about the same size.
Yeah, the sides on it are lower. It's just the V10 engine and long gearbox made it appear much bigger than it actually is.
Well, we've got a car on the line now in this Class I 1100cc car. Steve Marr currently fastest with Simon Andrews.
Should be Felix Summers.
Yes, it's Felix Summers away from the line with the Ford Suzuki, which he's sharing with Sam Lester today. One of Lindsay Summers' cars, I think.
Yes, one of her many cars, which includes Austin Healers and all sorts of other stuff. Here's Felix now. He has had a best time of the day in this car here at Loton Park at our final club meeting of the year last year, and it's Jim Spencer on the start line now in that cleverly built little Reynard.
And Felix Summers heading up towards Museum now in the Force PT. And finish.
Yeah, I think
Jim
Spencer, the elder of the Spencer brothers. Very regular competitor here at Loton over the years. Both of them used to run the same Silver Striker in the past. And on the start line now is Andy Dunbar.
Jim Spencer into fallow bend with the Reynard. Safely through Museum, charging towards the finish, and it's a 50.57 for Jim Spencer.
Now Andy Dunbar, we've not seen them for a bit, had an engine failure a little while ago. Andy does a quarter spin that keeps on driving out of Triangle Bend. It looked like it could end in tears, but he managed to control it. He's gone from our sight, and on the line now is the Force HC of Mike Andrews.
Oh, and Andy outbraked himself a little bit going into fallow bend. It's a very shallow approach. Now he's into and out of Museum. Over the crest and through the finish, 51.19 for Andy Dunbar.
And there goes Mike Andrews right on the limit in the little Force. Sitting on the start line, Simon Andrews, who was at the head of this division until not many minutes ago. Can he grab that back from Steve Marr?
Oh, and coming to a halt at fallow is Mike Andrews. On a very wide approach. Suddenly the fire went.
Red flag showing this part of the hill, and Simon Andrews will return to the paddock.
I think Mike has actually got the car running again. Darcy to head up the hill.
Well, the only one who's inconvenienced is his dad, who's returning to the paddock right now.
Mike Andrews going very, very slowly up towards the finish. Seems to me that he actually reached over and turned the power switch on and off, or off and on, and got it fired up again. So hopefully not a serious problem for Mike.
So, Nev Rollison away from the start line. Nev's done what he does occasionally this season, which is bring out the J-Man Formula Ford and the turbocharged OMS, sorry, supercharged OMS back home in the garage this weekend. He brought this car to the Channel Islands in the summer, and very convenient thing to run. You don't have to worry about changing wheels and tyres, and the car's got a reverse gear, so you can get yourself parked in the paddock nice and easily. And he was the only one that got away from Booley Bay after that nasty incident in a reasonable amount of time.
Nev Rollison into fallow already. They are space train chassis and run with the Avon controlled tyres. And the time for Nev Rollison, 60.2.
And now the dynamic dentist, Phil Cook, on his way towards you. This car running a 1600cc engine this year.
And Phil Cook out of fallow up into Museum Bend. Heading up towards the finish, and through there, 52.15.
So now John McKenzie, former Radical Pro Sport driver, First time here at Loton Park in his OMS. Had a reasonable weekend at Dune. Weekend last. Goes past us into keepers and makes the exit from keepers, and then on the start line, Kelvin Broad, Pilbeam MP62.
Yeah, in fact, John Mackenzie got his OMS into a Dune runoff for the first time, the second runoff last weekend.
John Mackenzie out of Fallow Bend in the little space for aim at OMS. Already, oh, back end gets away from him going to Museum. Has to come off the throttle. Now through the finish, 51.77.
And John Mackenzie running the Suzuki engine that he used to run in his Radical. Hard on the brakes into final. Now is Kelvin Broad with one of the first Pilbeams to be fitted with the motorcycle engine, the MP62, with the Suzuki Hayabusa. Used to be very quick in a Lotus 7 a good few years ago.
Kelvin Broad into and out of Fallow in the Pilbeam MP62 with the Hayabusa engine in the back.
Final. Now on the line is Einan Price, and Einan and Sean Gould holding first and second in practice in this class, just 21/100ths of a second between them. Einan, the winner of the second runoff at Wiscombe Park back in July.
A wet one, wasn't it, Jerry?
Cruising up towards the top of the hill. Maybe a problem coming out of keepers onto Cedar Straight, but Tina not being able to hook up a good time. She's being chased by the Welsh wizard himself, Einan Price. Einan up into Museum already in the gold. Powers his way up towards the finish, and he's through the finish. And whoops, we don't have a time for Einan Price.
46.55, Steve.
Which is quicker than his earlier time. Now we've got Ed Hollier, and he's Kirsten down ace on the hill now with the Empire Evo. He has an outside chance of winning the Leaders HillClimb Championship, but it is an outside chance. It all depends on...
Ed Hollier into and out of Fallow. Now on the run up into Museum Bend. Powers over the top of the hill and through the finish, 47.32.
So we're just going to say it depends on what Colin Satcham can do, but the advantage is with the Peugeot driver. But Ed Hollier goes second quickly, splits the goal of Einan Price in the final practice session. Richard Spedding is now on the hill with the GWR Raptor that he's sharing for the day with Les Match.
Richard Spedding up into Fallow Bend. Powers out to Museum and through the finish, 48.09.
So back to the 1100s, and it's Simon Andrews second at the moment. Got a red flag a few moments ago. Steve Marr was just 300ths of a second clear in practice, and we've yet to see Simon Fido take his third practice run. He, as we mentioned, was right in amongst it with Steve at Dune last weekend.
Simon Andrews down changing into Fallow. Now up into Museum Bend. Super smooth run, and Simon Andrews through the finish, 50.9.
That's no improvement, so Steve Marr at the moment leads the class in practice, but we're still waiting for Simon Fido. Will we see the Empire race?
Gary Stevens goes past us on his way towards you in the Dallara. And on the start line and leaving is Nicky Cottrell.
In the ex-Formula 3 Dallara. Still running the Formula 3 rear wing. And Gary through the finish, 52.59.
Meanwhile, here comes Nicky Cottrell in the ex-Everybody Pilbeam MP62. Should say MP82. Not that there's much difference. Nicky steadily through keepers and on her way along Cedar Straight, to be followed by Nicola Dearden. Pilbeam MP6282.
And this normally aspirated 2 litre class. It's
Quite slow through Fallow Bend. And likewise through Museum. Heading up towards the finish. And it's a 58.93 for Nicky Cottrell. Over a second and a half slower than she was earlier.
As so often in the normally aspirated 2 litre class, it's Tim Davis that has the edge at the moment, the only sub 50-second runner.
Nicola Dearden
Tim Hill, the second quickest, but
Fallow Bend in the MP62, upgrade to 82 some years back, and heading for the finish.
But Tim Hillman just behind Tim Davis with the new for this season Dallara with the Terry Davis Yamaha base V8 in the back.
And Bill Morris now in the MP88 Pilbeam with the 2 litre Millington block in behind. Safely through Museum and heading to the finish, 53.74 for Bill Morris.
And here comes Mr. OMS himself, Steve Owen and Andy Macbeth. OMS 25 Supercharged car. On the start line, Will Hall, car number 3.
Yeah, Steve Owen driving Simon Macbeth's OMS 25. This is the high nose conversion. Oh, and Steve having to brake heavily for Museum. Now over the finish, 49.14.
This actually is Graham Wing coming towards us, not Will Hall. We'll see him a little later on. Car's owner and co-sponsor of the British Hillclimb Championship and the Leaders Championship heads up towards Cedar Straight right now.
Graham Wynn braking heavily for Fallow. Safely through there, up into Museum. Tyres squeal as he goes through the corner. And
Lynn.
Over the finish, 49.67.
Next to come into sight here is Lynn Owen, sharing Lee Griffiths, Supercharged OMS 25. Started out his career being co-driven by Lee and current British Hillclimb Championship coordinator Tim Wilson with a normally aspirated 1600cc booster engine in the back. And Dave Uren on the start line. Hand over to Jerry for that one.
Lynn Owen heading up into Fallow Bend, sharing Lee Griffiths, OMS. Now out to Museum. For Lynn Owen.
So already on his way out of keepers and up Cedar Straight, it's Dave Uren, who's moved up to 7th overall in the British Championship. Could possibly just get on terms with Will Hall tomorrow in the final 2 rounds.
Into and out of Fallow for Dave Uren. Charging up the hill already, out of Museum,
we do hand over.
on the way to the finish, and it's a 46.19 for Dave Uren.
So now Tricia Davis coming towards us in the Reynard TKD with her husband's 2.6 litre Suzuki based V8 in the back. And Fisher around keepers, going to head up Cedar Straight and on the way towards Steve. And leaving the start line now, Sandra Tomlin. Pilgrim MP97 Judd.
Fisher Davis breaking into Fowler already. Now into Museum, super smooth rock from Chris. She's over the crest and through the finish. 50.97.
Sandra Tomlin past us, and sitting on the start line is Tony Hunt. In the Goldjar 55 he shares with John Bradburn. You can tell it's Tony, he's got the shiny chrome-plated silver helmet.
Sandra Tomlin into and out of Fallow. Runs a little bit wide on the exit, now charging to the finish. And for Sandra Tomlin, 53.36.
Here comes Tony Hunt. New this season in John Bradburn's car painted in Tony's Equinox and Computers and iPod surgery livery. Yet to get in a runoff in this car in 2015. Will we see him do that tomorrow? Meanwhile, Wallace Ming is on the start line.
Tony Hunt into Fallow. Now powers his way towards the finish. Time for Tony Hunt, 51.21.
Now Wallace Mingers leads the start. He's the man who's doing so well in the British Hillclimb Championship this season. First time this season in the ex-Martin Groves Paul Ransom GR55. Has held 100 Hillclimb Championship runoff wins to those two drivers. All but one in Martin Groves. His hand disappears towards Steve at the top of the hill.
And Wallace Mingers braking very heavily into Fallow, now up into Museum. Lifts the inside front wheel. Over the crest. Through the finish already, 44.3.
So in fact that is the fastest practice time we've seen so far today. Wallace Mingers increases his advantage over Scott Moran, who we shall see is an ex-back.
I'm going to say Jerry is only 0.04 away from the class record.
Now Rodney Isles away from the start line. He did move off the start, but didn't break the beams with his rear wheel, so gets a chance for a restart, and he's on his way towards us now. And it's Delara that I've not seen for quite a few years. Has won rounds of the British Hillclimb Championship and the Sprint Championship, but with two different engines.
Rodney Isles already into Fallow Bend.
And then we're going back quite a few...
now out of Museum. And through the finish, 52.32 for Rodney Isles.
So cutting back quite a few classes to Stuart Stelling in the 2-litre Ford Escort RS 2000. Car that had to have a new nose fitted a few years ago when the droop snoot was knocked off up at Museum.
But we don't talk about that.
Too late, already have. End of a batch.
And Stuart Stelling into Fallow already. Goes very wide on the exit of Museum. And through the finish, 59.16 for Stuart Stelling. And we've already got the red flag down at the top of the hill. starting to move away from the holding area. I understand that the problem with Mike Andrews' Porsche was gear selection problems coming into Fallow Bend, which caused Mike to stall the engine. So maybe a little bit of repair work required tomorrow.
He's managed to get down here under his own power, followed by Phil Cook. Yes, with his Jerry points out, with his Gersten replacement nose, he was extremely disappointed in himself, literally beat himself up on the track. Thought he was going to give himself a good punching as he slithered to the outside of Carousel and then crossed the track and just kept going into the very, very unforgiving retired railway sleepers that are on two stacks on the inside of the bend. Bent the front suspension, damaged the nose, got out and gave himself a very good talking to, as I recall. So prospects for tomorrow look interesting. Weather forecast set for a similar session tomorrow. So if you're here tomorrow, folks, can I just point out, nice early start again at about 8:30, but we do have to stop for an hour for a church service from 9:30 to 10:30, hence the very early start. So when that does happen, so it'll be all quiet, so we will silence the PA and no engines to be run during that time, please, out of respect to our neighbours in the village of Albury with their little church just over the road. So away from the start line goes Charles Williams, recently acquired this Pilbeam MP87, had been run for quite a few years by Terry Clifford, a man who's not many years, but he always paints his Pilbeams white, did Terry Clifford. So here comes Charles Williams now, just turning into Triangle Bend. Going to accelerate away as hard as he can towards keepers, around keepers and away, and start marshals are waiting the next car on the start line right now.
Charles Williams up into Fallow Bend. Now through Museum. Ooh, fluff gear change, he went over the brow and through the finish 55.89.
Now Ian Fido leaves the start. Carbon fibre OMS with Terry Davis, TKD, Yamaha base V8 in the back, coming into our sight now. Here he is, turning in. Experienced driver is Ian Fido, been around for many years. Accelerates hard away along Cedar Straight and on the start line. I'll let you know who that is. That's Mike Trigoni, Pilbeam MP 101 Suzuki.
Ian Fido, safety through Fallow, heading up to Museum Bend. Back on the power. And through the finish.
Mike Trigoni turns in at Triangle. And on the start line, the Stevens brothers, Delara.
Mike Trigoni into and out of Fallow. Pilbeam heading for the finish, and it's a 51.65.
Gavin Stevens now away from the start line in the Delara that was driven in the on the continent by Duncan Barnes a few years Duncan Barnes and then later Mark Walker a few years ago. Turns into Triangle, gets away from there. Now he's at keepers. On the start line that ought to be George Bleasdale.
Bend, Gavin Stevens with the Delara 1999 Formula 3.
Now George Bleasdale with us.
George Bleasdale into Fallow with the Rover V6 powered Pilbeam. Charging through to the finish, 53.67 for George Bleasdale.
And John Cottrell away from the start. John Pilbeam MP 82. Vauxhall coming towards us down at Triangle Bend, turning in right about now. Sitting on the start line is Tim Elmer in the Terry Davis powered Delara F303. Tim Elmer away from the start.
John Cottrell in the MP82 Pilbeam. Just the run to the finish and stops the clocks 55.89.
Followed by Tim Elmer, first season out in this Delara. He had the tug for many years before he put the whole thing together. Andrew Henson on the start and away. Pilbeam MP 6282.
Tim Elmer out of Museum already and through the finish 49.51.
Tim Elmer with you.
Well, Tim Elmer goes quickest. So Tim Davis edged out to second place in practice. We've yet to see the Welshman take his third run in the Pilbeam Millington. But Tim Elmer, one of only two drivers who's run sub 50 so far in this class, 49.51, leads the way.
Andrew Henson now into Museum Bend. He's through the finish, 50.19 for Andrew Henson.
Now this is Jeff Gill. Now I'm told retired garage proprietor from Guernsey, left the business in the hands of his former British Hillclimb Championship round winner Chris.
Jeff Gill now en route to Museum Bend. Brakes quite heavily to the corner. Just the run to the finish, and it's a 52.87 for Jeff Gill.
And now Tim Davis away from the start, coming towards us. Pilbeam MP88 with Millington Zero Diamond engine in the back end.
Tim Davies edged out to second in practice behind Tim Elmer, so 49.51 is now the fastest time by Elmer.
Tim Davis comes into view, breaking into fallow. Gets the MP88 up into Museum Bend. Just the run to the finish, clock ticking down, and it's a 50.09 for Tim Davis.
Now Forrest Styles, nephew of co-driver Rodney. Bit of a sideways moment coming out of Triangle Bend for Forrest. Speeds on his way up the hill, looking out for the next car, which is... should be Andy Macbeth. Yes, it is.
Forrest Styles heading up now to Museum Bend. And he's through the finish, 53.16.
Now Andy Macbeth, car carrying a fairly bulky looking wing end plated front end.
Andy back there into and out of fallow, heading up to Museum. Charging towards the finish, and it's a 52.98 for Andy Macbeth.
He'll be followed up by Paul Hames, registered for the British Championship, driving his Supercharged duel GR59. We haven't seen Simon Moyse again in his Supercharged version. Had all three running GR59s here today. Nicola Mingus will be next on the start line. Paul Hames with Steve now.
Paul Hames heading into Fallow Bend in the GR59. Up into Museum, lifts the inside wheel quite a way off the ground, and he's through the finish, 49.67, Paul Hames.
No, Nicola Mingus away from the start. Oh, very quick 1.95 0 to 64 feet, so in excess of 1 G of lateral acceleration for Nicola. The little X-Will Hall 4PC chassis around Keepers Bend, speeds away along Keepers, and car number 132 on the start, Paul Crute.
Menges into and out of fallow. Nice tidy run through Museum, heading to the finish, and it's a 52.46 for Nicola.
Meanwhile, Paul Crute in the Jaguar V6 powered Philbeam MP58. These Jaguar V6s, they look like a pair of Duratec engines in V6 formation.
We understand that engine's going into a slightly smaller chassis next year, Eddie?
Yes.
More crew out of Fallow into Museum. Running to the finish. And it's a 55.87 for crew.
So heading towards you, Terry Graves in the Gouldjar 37 Cosworth.
Yep, here comes Terry Graves, the Cosworth DFR powered Gould. Terry through the finish, 51.2.
Ollie Tomlin, Philbeam MP97, Judd V8 in the back. Has scored a few points, not a hatful, but quite a few points in the British Championship this season in the limited number of events that he does. And sitting on the start line, John Bradburn, 9th equal in the at the top of the HillClimb Championship chart.
Oliver Tomlin heading up into Museum Bend now in the Judd powered Philbeam. Charges over the finish line, 47.35 for Oliver Tomlin.
But here's John Bradburn now, and he's quickly away from Triangle Bend. He wasn't anywhere near his 10th of a second slower away from the start line than Ollie Tomlin. And we're getting into the cars we expect to see at the top of the runoff tomorrow.
John Bradburn now out of Fallow, through Museum Bend, inside front wheel skips through the corner, and John through the finish, 46.82, John Bradburn.
Yes, JB managed to fetch one of those flip-flop bollards out of the curbing, the rumble strip on the inside of Fletcher's Dello. So that's being returned to its rightful place. The purpose of those is to discourage drivers from mounting the rumble strip too far and keep them within the track limits. Had one of them fairly heftily destroyed this morning. So the flag comes in at post 2A. Post 2 just out of our sight at the apex on the outside of loggerheads, outside the apex of loggerheads. We'll be back underway in just a few moments. Tom New comes to the start line.
Well, just looking at the times overall, John Bradburn fifth quickest in the class, but in actual fact fifth quickest overall. It's Dave Uren with the turbocharged fourth. So Tom New leaves the line 2 seconds exactly over the first 64 feet in the car that he engineered over the winter, to be run by himself and Wallace Wing is this year. Quick, he's coming into the split at Triangle, 18.58. That's just a 10th of a second slower than John Bradburn at this stage, but still some quick cars to come in this class. So next we're probably going to be looking out for
into and out of Fallow. Nice run through Museum, powers his way over the crest and through the finish, 46.72, Tom New.
Well, it's actually Terry Davis on the hill next, not registered for the championship, and Tom New goes 7th quickest overall. So Terry Davis now on the hill. So still the big hitters to come in this class. Trevor Willis and Scott Moran to come in.
Terry Davis up into Museum Bend. Now his way out to the corner, charging towards the finish, and it's a 50.15, Terry Davis.
Well, we didn't actually see Alex Summers take a third run. He could have been in the previous batch, so we just didn't Scott Moran in a few moments' time. Meanwhile, it's Will Hall on the hill now, sharing Graham Wynn's turbocharged Ford Suzuki, still with the number 3 on the course, where he finished in last year's championship. Wallace Ming is still fastest overall from Scott Moran and Alex Summers.
Going into fallow for Will Hall, lost his time. A little bit of a hesitation at Museum. Rapidly
I don't think we're going to see.
47.67 for Will Hall.
No.
So here's Trevor Willis, the car repaired after the slight corner top, charging on as ever, 18.17. That looks like the quickest triangle split we've seen so far. Well, it's been his fastest practice time so far, 44.30. What can Trevor do?
So here comes Trevor Willis into fallow Bend with the OMS. Up into Museum. Little bit of a hesitation. Now opens it up towards the finish, and it's a 46.22 for Trevor Willis.
So Trevor Willis fourth quickest. I guess we're probably not going to see Scott Moran and Alex Summers again this afternoon, because we've got John Hewitt on the hill with the Rover-powered Lynn car.
John Hewitt, bit of a lock-up coming into fallow. Safe to do the corner though. Now up into Museum Bend. And rumbles past the commentary box en route to the finish. And it's a 57.06 for John Hewitt. Chris Whittaker, meanwhile, in the Citroen Saxo, into and out of fallow. Running in Class E1. First of the Allsways UK Loton Park Championship classes. Chris Whittaker with the finish 69.8. Now we've got Ruth Marshall in the Mazda MX-5, heading up into Museum Bend. First season of hill climbing, heading for the finish. She posts a 71.25.
You'll be seeing Daniel Mee very, very shortly. Has gone past us. Just looking out for Becky Manton. She will be the end of the batch. Here comes Becky now. A couple of seasons into driving this little car.
Daniel Mee, a little bit of a lock-up going into fallow. Gets it slowed down enough to get the corner right. Now up into Museum Bend. Little Austin Hilly Sprite now on the run to the finish. Time for Daniel Mee, 77.12. Becky Manton already out of fallow, en route to Museum Bend in the MG Midget. Becky just a run to the finish, and she crosses the line, 72.22 for Becky Manton. That is the end of a batch.
Thank you, Steve. So, just looking at the times we've seen so far, what can we expect to see when the big hitters come out for real tomorrow? Well, at the moment it's Wallace Mingies who's setting the pace in practice with 44.30. Next up, Scott Moran, 44.57, and his co-driver Alex Summers, the champion-elect 44.74. They've elected not to take their third practice runs, but fourth quickest, bouncing back after that earlier problem, but nonetheless setting his fastest time on the first run, 45.57. Trevor Willis, fourth quickest overall, and then in fifth place on 46.19, it's Dave Uren with the turbocharged Paul Suzuki. Rounding off the top six at the moment, we've got John Bradburn on 46.66.
Just go. So we'll just be seeing batch 6 before we finish for the afternoon. A fairly mixed bag of cars in batch 6. Should start, if everything goes according to plan, with Nick Tart in the March 708. That's the Class M for sports racing and racing cars manufactured before 1971. There was, I say, a mixed bag there. The March 708, the pretty little Centaur Lotus, and Richard Jones's regular class winning Brabham BT29. Then pre-85 sports racing and racing cars, again a mixed bag in there. You'll see Matt Morrison in the car. We did see John Hewitt driving in this last batch, the Linkar Formula Atlantic, but with the Rover V8 power. And then just the one runner in the sports racing and racing cars manufactured from 86 to 92, Richard Walker in the Swallow. Phoebe Rolt in the Formula Junior Elva, and then our all-swage UK Loton Park Championship, which is organised into 3 classes: beginners, matures, and very experienced drivers. So those 3, that's the way I describe it: Class 1, Class 2, Class 3. We've seen some double-driven cars from that class at the very end of that last batch. We'll be back with you in just a few moments. It's beginning to get a little bit late early these days. Now we're past the equinox, so the sun will be very low in the sky and could become an oncoming hazard to some of the drivers as they get towards the top of Cedar Strait. Hopefully that will now be in shadow of the trees just over the top. It's our final meeting of the year here at Loton Park. We will have our, here's our dates. If you've got a programme, page 32 will show you our events for next season, starting with the members practice weekend, which probably won't be open to spectators, but I'm sure we'll let a few people in if they're keen enough. The Marshals training day is open to Marshals only, and it rotates around the 3 Midland Hills every 3 years. Our first full competitive meeting, April the 16th and 17th next, 2 separate National B meetings, one on the Saturday, one on the Sunday. But before that, and I don't have the actual date handy, but we will find out and mention it tomorrow, the annual Ken Wharton International Auto Test taking place at the Arrow Mill, very close to Ragley Hall, just on the southwestern outskirts of Ulster, and that's the one that used to be televised back in the 50s and 60s on Grandstand, and we'll be there sometime towards the end of October, but I will find out the date for you and we will make sure that we mention that tomorrow. So that's open to all to come and view, and well, some people might not think it's that suitable for spectatoring, but it's certainly where you will see some of the finest skills in auto testing worldwide, because all the home nations are represented, including and the Republic of Ireland and a ladies team, but you'll have England, Scotland, Northern Ireland, the Republic of Ireland, and Wales, of course, plus the ladies team, taking 7 different courses, if I recall correctly, laid out in the car park of the Arrow Mill. named after former Hagley member and Jerry, remind me how many times Ken Wharton won the British? Is it 4 or 5?
4 times.
4 times,
yes,
yeah.
4 times. 4 consecutive times. The only time anybody's ever done that. That's quite a number of drivers, in fact, were champion 4 times. The elite group is when you move into the 5, so you've just got Martin Griffiths, David Grace and Scott Moran. Of course, Tony Marsh won it 6 times, but things were a bit different in his day. There were only 5 rounds of the championship back in the 50s, a few more in the 60s.
Right, but now we are back in action, so we're into our last batch of the day, starting with car number 7735. That is Nick Tart in the March 708. Not a one-off, but it's the only one that survives today. Smallest of the Marches ever built, a 1600cc Ford Crossflow, or smallest and least powerful. And then lined up to go is Joshua Moss in that pretty and unusual looking Centaur Lotus pencil slim body on that car.
Of course, the Centaur is the Formula Ford originally. Now it's got the Lotus twin cam engine. We're looking out at the top of the hill for Nick Tart in the Formula Ford March. Here comes Nick now into the braking area for Fallow. There you go.
There's Nick Tart, it's Joshua Moss.
And Nick Tart through the finish, 61.98.
As Joshua Moss continues towards you, we're waiting for Richard Jones to start, so he gets away, which he does now, and we will see him in about 15 seconds time as you continue with Joshua Moss.
Yeah, Joshua out of Fallow already with the pretty little Centaur up into Museum Bend. Just the run to the finish.
Well, Richard Jones was lucky that he didn't go straight on down here at Triangle. He only just hauled it into under control and turned right here and disappears along Cedar Straight towards Steve. Meantime, it is Roger Deans in the big 5-litre Lola T142 leads the start.
Richard Jones into and out of Fallow in the BC29X. Charging up and over the crest towards the finish through it in 53.52.
Lots of exhaust smoke on the overrun from Roger Deans. Big Lola, and sitting on the start line now is Jonathan Varley. March 772, rockets away from the start. Awaiting the next car to reach the start line.
Roger Deans in the 1969 Lola T142. Now into Museum Bend.
Stuart Ridge now on the start line, and we saw Jonathan Varley go past.
And Roger Deans through the finish, 60.61.
Jonathan Varley coming towards you, Stuart Ridge just awaiting the go.
Jonathan Varley into and out of Fallow. Pushing hard through Museum. And JV on his way to the finish. And it's a 50.08.
Oh, Stuart Ridge, a bit of a halting getaway. Wouldn't be happy with that tomorrow in competition. 2.68 away from the start line is against 2.28 for Roger Deans. So had a bit of clutch handling trouble there, I would say. Comes around towards us now. Stuart Ridge turns fairly tight. Doesn't want to rub the rumble strip with those very low side skirts on the pill beam. And now we are into our all-swage UK Loton Park Championship Class 1.
Stuart Ridge into Fallow with the pill beam. 2.8 litre Hart engine in the back. Stuart charging up towards the finish, and 51.75 is his time.
So yes, a lot slower than earlier, Stuart Ridge. And here comes Rob Whittaker, first in this batch of the runners in our all-swage UK Loton Park Championship. Rob Whittaker earlier on. So this is a handicap class anyway, so it's not really a lot of point in giving too many of the scratch times.
So Rob Whittaker already en route to Museum Bend with a little Citroen Saxo VTR. He's heading up towards the finish, 72.53.
Well, quickest on scratch early was James Peake, 64.59.
Oh, big lock up there for Paul Owen at the braking area for Fallow. The BMW now up into Museum.
So now Edwin Toms in the Ford Fiesta ST.
70.93 for Paul Owen in the BMW.
Here's Peter Marshall away from the start line. She's heading up towards the left-hander at Hall, the car she shares with her daughter.
Edwin Tom into and out of Fallow Bend with the Ford Fiesta ST150.
Peter Marshall going towards us
for the finish. And it's a 69.69 for Edwin Tom.
Cat Marshall, she's on Cedar Straight. Richard Roberts now coming our way. Fisher Fury. This time he gets safely around Triangle.
Marshall, MX5 up into Museum Bend. Just a run to the finish. Better through there, 74.36.
Here comes Richard Roberts.
Oh, big slide for the Fisher Fury. Richard Roberts charging his way up the hill. And through the finish, 61.21 for Richard Roberts.
Colin Mee had a couple of goes at Triangle Bend. Changed his line part way round. We will see Christopher Bentley Jones. He's just come to the start line in the march. We've got a very much a mixed bag in this batch. Here's Graham Manton, Austin Healy.
Colin B now heading up towards Museum Bend. The Austin Healy Sprite.
We are going to see Matt Morrison too, because he's on the start line in the Link car.
En route to Museum, it's number 158, Graham Manton in the MG Midget. Graham Manton, 68.77. Now we've got Chris Bentley Jones in the March 792. He's heading through the finish, 55.55 for Chris Bentley Jones.
So we are seeing Matt Morrison in the Lincar Rover coming towards us now. That's the teal blue or turquoise coloured car turning through Triangle Bend along the short straight into Keepers. Takes the left out of Keepers and heads up Cedar Straight. Meanwhile, Dave Watkins, car number 159 on the hill.
Matt Morrison rumbles his way up Cedar Straight. Link car starting like the corner Atlantic with a 1.6 litre BDA engine on the back. Big roller lump. Firing on all eight. He's over the finish, 56.54.
And also firing on all eight, Dave Watkins in the Triumph TR8. He was an absolute handful of a car down here at Triangle. And Mark Bishop away from the start. Westfield Zetec.
Yes, the TR8 successfully through Fallow. Dave Watkins persuades it through Museum. Just a run to the finish. And it's a 64.19.
The T-registered Westfield SE with Ford Z-Tech power of Mark Bishop. Already out of sight, heading up Cedar Straight, and on the start line is, and leaving it, is Steve Morgan, jumping a couple of cars ahead. I think you said the Roadrunner broke earlier, didn't you?
Yeah, and we've now got Mark Bishop heading up into Museum Bay, Westfield. Through the finish, 63.49 for Mark Bishop. We interview Steve Morgan in another of the Westfields. Steve charging up into Museum. Heading for the finish, and it's a 54.27 for Steve Morgan.
And now the purchased replica Graham Jones, the only runner in Class 3 of our Horseway UK Loton Park Championship. Quite often run alone in that end of the class this season. Then James Peake going to be coming our way. And the Tiger Supercat, so we are going to see him. Being a bit lenient with starting order because it's practice.
Graham Jones into Fallow Bend. Graham cruising up to the top of the hill. Quite a bit slower than he was earlier. It's a 70.43. Now we've got James Peacock on his heels with the Tiger Supercat. He's through Museum. And the run to the finish. And it's a 64.56. And I believe that's the end of the batch, Eddie. So
yes, it is, Steve. Cars are coming back down.
That should be the end of practice.
Yep, just waiting to see the start line marshals pack up down there.
And could we three have a little bit of a get together when I get back down to the paddock to have a little chat about tomorrow?
Okay, Steve. Yeah, right. We'll do.
I'll see you later then.
Okay, thanks. We're just waiting for confirmation that that is the end of the day. Yes, the start line marshals are beginning to put the fire bottles into the hut. So we will see you again tomorrow, bright and early. It's an 8:30 start, the beginning of class runs. 9:30 till 10:30 a church service, so full silence will be maintained throughout that, please folks. A restart and we'll get underway with the rest of the day's action. Thanks very much to Steve and to Jerry for this afternoon, and we'll be back again in the morning. Thanks very much and good night.
day today.
Back again where you come from. Come round here.
Okay, fab.
All right.
Yeah. We're just going to get t-shirts to wear.
Okay.
What I'm doing
Opened up the back.
what I'm doing now is I'm altering
Oh right.
what's coming. See what I've done. These lads in here are now in that mixer. You're
Right.
in that one.
Right, okay.
You are the only one in that one.
Right, okay.
But what I'm going to do, because we should be running line level up to the top,
Mm.
I'm going to make up a couple of little fly rooms